Welcome back to the garage. So today I'm reinstalling the radiator on my truck, and I'm also installing an electric cooling fan. My truck actually maintains temperature just fine, except when I'm pulling a very heavy load up a long grade. So yeah, just reattaching all the radiator hoses. After I get done with these hose clamps, I'm going to switch over to putting some Teflon tape on the sending unit. And this truck had an EGR valve that was deleted a while back, so it had a vacuum controller that went into this spot. So I just removed that vacuum controller because it's not being used anyway, which made a perfect spot for the sender. Up next, we are going to set the relay onto the inner fender well. This is actually attached to the core support, which makes a good ground point. And then I'm going to lay the wiring plug in and lay the wiring for the fan itself. We are also attaching this to the bottom of the radiator out of the way, so it's not on any chafing points or anything like that. I pre-bundled the wires because I really don't like having wire harnesses that are just bare wires like that. I like it being more of a factory style where they're all neatly tucked away. Now I'm going to take the remaining 3 wires and start to run them in their final position now that the relay is in place, and again wrapping everything up so it gives it a little bit of chafing protection and also makes it look more factory. We're going to check and make sure I got a good signal. I have the key on right now, so one of the wires that goes to the alternator is a 12-volt signal and the other is a ground signal. Now I'm just very carefully trimming back the insulation on this key on power wire, and then I'm going to solder on this white wire, which is part of the wire harness that I purchased for this installation. And then after that I'm going to very carefully cut off the end of the white wire so it makes just a little short stub. That'll allow me to unplug and replug this harness for ease of maintenance down the road. Probably don't need to do it, but I'm going to add just a little bit more tape to this connector, give it a little bit more chafing protection. Since this is a keyed on power source, I'd rather it not have an issue down the road. And again, we're going to loop around, make sure there's enough length to make a nice even transition into the plug, so there's no stress on that connection down the road. And now that this main harness is done, I'm going to lay the input power wire that wires straight up to the battery. I get that laid along this existing harness, mostly because the existing harness is a good safe place to run it, but it also makes it for a cleaner look. And I put just the eyelid on the end of it, so I'm going to disconnect the battery cable from the solenoid that's located here on the fender well, get that all tightened back up. And then we're going to go through and hook up or put some zip ties on this harness, so make sure it stays nice and neat with the existing harness. And last but not least, we're going to run this ground signal wire right alongside the ground battery cable. And again, we're not going to wrap anything up, we'll just do a couple zip ties, pin it in place, and then go put a terminal on the end of it and tape it up real good, so that way nothing will happen to it in the future, and we will have a ready to go system. Alright, so quick recap. We got our connections down here, so we can just unplug the fan. Got the wire zip tied to the bottom of the radiator, so it will never get in the way of the mechanical fan that's going back in. We got a fuse that's right here available if we ever have to pop, or if we ever overload this system, which I don't think we're going to blow a 30 amp fuse with the way this is set up. We have the ground for the fan that's right here to this frame. This framework goes to the core support, so it's a plenty good ground. Then we wrap this wire up. This white wire here jumpers into the 12 volt signal that comes that feeds the alternator, which shouldn't affect the alternator at all considering how low of a current this whole system is. And then it follows this main wire bundle right up to the main power for this red wire. And then I looped the ground, so say this wire got some damage to it and shorted out to something, ultimately it's just going to turn the system, or the fan on. So it won't actually hurt anything, so I'm not too worried about this one being protected. However, it is running kind of out of the way and then goes to here. And I powered the system up and jumpered this to a ground, and the fan turned on just fine, pulling the right direction. So my pre-prep did just fine. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Fairly straightforward little process with the kit. You can, however, look up how to wire up one of these little relays. They're actually a standardized pattern, so you can, if you wanted to harvest, say, the plug out of another vehicle, which I've done in the past, and relays out of another vehicle, they'll interchange fairly readily. But that's about it. So thank you all for watching.